Welcome to Stoked with Megan McPhail, the podcast that helps you get super effing jazzed about your work, life, and bank account. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become a seven-figure business coach, entrepreneur, and elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on inspiring others to do the same. Are you ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind and start going after some big, bold dreams? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail, and today I have a special episode for you featuring Erica Swantek. She is an elopement photographer based in the Pacific Northwest, serving Oregon and Washington, and she has a really cool backstory that we want to share with you and to motivate you to commit to your dreams of being an elopement photographer. Welcome to the podcast, Erica.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! So you weren't always an elopement photographer. In fact, you weren't always a photographer in general. And you didn't become an elopement photographer until what age?
I was 38 when I first photographed my first wedding. And
Awesome.
then, an elopement photographer really was quite a few years later.
Yeah, perfect. So what did you start off doing in your earlier years?
Yeah, well, I went to school for forestry, and I have my Bachelor of Science in forestry, forest management, actually, from Colorado State. And I worked for the Forest Service for almost 6 years as a seasonal employee at first, and then a full-time managed forests in Colorado. And I decided that that was just not the career that was meant for me because it was government work and there's kind of like a standard way of doing things. And it really didn't allow any creativity and things had to be done by the book. And I'm not a by the book person.
Yeah, you want to do things your own way.
Totally. So I left that career and I followed my husband's dream of being a travel nurse for a while. And we just kind of floated around. And then I went back to school, pursued elementary education, and I did that for a year, like an intensive post-baccalaureate program in Colorado again. And quickly realized that that was pretty much the same thing, kind of a government job and by the book. And there's maybe a little bit more creativity, but it was managing a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of kids, and not always easy situations. So I left that after a very short stint of a year and moved to Bend, Oregon. And I've been here for 15 years and love it, and decided to pick up the camera kind of as a way to channel my creativity because I wasn't doing anything. And I was mostly photographing landscapes, but a friend invited me on a photo shoot with her, and I kind of fell in love with it.
So you picked up a camera because you didn't have a job, essentially, and you're in Bend, Oregon, and it's freaking beautiful. And obviously you love nature if you were in the Forest Service. So yeah, of course you're going to pick up a camera. And I feel like photography just really calls to us, right? Like it's like once we start, we can't stop, like when you're a true photographer. So when you photographed your first wedding, you were 38 years old, correct?
Yep, correct.
And how did you feel like when you were like, hey, I actually kind of like this. I like shooting weddings, like how did you feel being older, not being like a 24-year-old right out of college pursuing wedding photography and stuff? Like, how did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt old at times. I'm young at heart, but definitely like I worried that people would think that maybe I was too old or I wasn't cool enough or whatever. But that really hasn't been the case. I've found that a lot of my couples trust me so much, and I don't get a whole lot of pushback like I hear in the wedding photography world from grumpy mother of the brides or whatever. I think that there's like a different level of respect. But, I still have a lot of fun with my couples. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you started out with weddings, and then why did you end up switching and pivoting over to elopements? What did that look like?
Yeah, I was definitely down like the traditional wedding path. And I was one of the founding members of our like local wedding association
Mm,
and sat on the board. I was the board chair for a few
wow.
years. Yeah. And, it really was a world to me that didn't resonate a lot with my values.
Hmm.
I'm pretty passionate about the environment and leaving no trace and all of that. And I've just found the wedding industry in general doesn't seem to really give a shit about the environment.
Hmm.
And, like there's great people in the industry, but I think just overall it's pretty wasteful.
Yeah.
And then like the big wedding parties and like all of this chaos and, you know, bridezillas. And I never really had bridezillas, but still like just like that really
The
like
stress.
stressful, yeah, the
Hmm.
stressful energy. It just really wasn't something that I enjoyed. And I had a couple, I want to say this was in like as early as 2016 or 17, reach out to me that like wanted to have their wedding at a waterfall. And
Mm-hmm.
the waterfall that they picked, I went and scoped out because it was close to me in Bend.
Hmm.
And I quickly realized that it would be a real challenge for them to host their intimate wedding there without her like hiking down this really steep cliff. And
Hmm.
she was so grateful and thankful. And I found them a different location that worked really well. And so I was planning their elopement before I even really realized that I was doing that.
Hmm.
And then, I would book like a couple here and there. And it was actually like during COVID, and it was actually pre COVID that I was really wanting to pivot towards
Hmm.
elopements. But once COVID happened, the weddings that I photographed that year that were intimate and small, and either they chose to elope or just have something very small on families' properties in their
Hmm.
backyard or out in nature, it just felt so good. And I felt super connected. And that was it. I knew that
Hmm.
that was like what I had to do. And I knew that I wasn't serving couples by taking on big traditional weddings in the venues around here.
I love that. And I think there are so many people that aren't following their values, and they aren't listening to their values and like what's important to them. And if you continue doing work that doesn't align with that, it's really hard. It really doesn't feel right. Like you really can't enjoy what you're doing. There's a resentment that builds. It takes a lot of strength and courage to identify, hey, this is not working for me. It doesn't align with what's most important for me. So I have to pivot. And you've done that multiple times now.
Totally.
Yeah, which is really cool. And so many people are afraid to do those pivots because of their age, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, every time I've made the decision to leave a career or change to pivot, whatever, it's been really scary.
Mhm.
I don't know what the result is going to be, but I just trust that if I follow my heart and follow what brings me joy,
Mhm.
it's like it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't in the end, I know I'm going to be okay because I've done it over and over again. But this has been something that I have stuck with for a really long time. And I feel like I'm niching down so much more. And I'm just excited about my job and excited about the couples that I get to serve. And,
Mhm.
like we're friends at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And that's a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah, that's the sign of not only just like a good marketing strategy, but really leaning into who you are and like who you want to work with and how to attract them. That's key, I feel like, to having an amazing elopement photography business is to have couples that feel more like friends. So, what were like the hardest parts about shifting from weddings to strictly elopements? Like, what was the biggest struggle for you in that?
It was fear for sure. The fear
Hmm.
that like I wasn't going to be successful with it. And the fear that like if I turn down weddings, I'm turning away income.
Hmm.
And then like figuring out how to do it in a way that was going to work too,
Yeah.
because I made the decision And I invested a lot of money in like a really beautiful website. And, I don't regret any of that because I'm able to work with it now. But going through your program with the Elopement Photographer Mastermind, like really shifted me in so many ways, not only like just in the numbers and
Mm-hmm.
understanding my numbers and understanding how to like market myself, but there was like huge mindset shifts that I didn't realize that I needed to like get through. And a lot of that was about money. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm fortunate that my husband is a nurse
Mm-hmm.
and he makes decent money. So we've been able to like live off of his one salary. But I want to like be able to provide for my family too and be able to like fund vacations and
Mm-hmm.
fun things, which I'm doing now. Like I
Yay.
just paid for a trip for us to go to Las Vegas to see one of our favorite bands.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really fun and awesome that like I can do that and not stress. Like, I don't know how I'm going to like pay for my Google ads or whatever next month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't worry about it. So making those mindset shifts has been huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't always have it perfect. And there can be the comparison game, but that's another big shift for me
Mm-hmm.
that has changed. Like, I don't typically compare myself anymore. And I don't
Good.
worry. I used to stress about like having to post on Instagram every day and like
Mm-hmm.
get a post and what am I going to say and what am I going to share? And now I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I should post on Instagram. It's been
Yeah.
a while.
I love that. I've loved seeing some of the shifts that you made because, I mean, you're talking about money and charging more. Obviously, like to be a successful elopement photographer, you have to charge five, six, $7,000 for elopements. Definitely more than four. And that can be scary for people when they first start out, especially coming from weddings and thinking
Yeah.
that, oh, people just want a quickie $500 elopement or something. Like that's a hard mindset
Yeah.
shift to go through.
I mean, that definitely has probably been the biggest because I've always known like the type of elopements that I want are more of the full day, but
Mm-hmm.
trying to like get there has been a journey. And I definitely have done my share of 1 to 3 hour elopements. And
Mm-hmm.
as I've done them, I've realized that it's just not enough time. In order to really like photograph a couple really enjoying themselves and interacting, you have to build a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And just like being hired for something like that, kind of last minute and just showing up and not really knowing them, none of that happens. So then it's just literally easy smile at the camera, and that's not my style. Like
Yeah.
people book me because I incorporate the landscape so much in my
Mm-hmm.
photos. I definitely have a lot of wide angle shots
Yeah.
and bring in the landscape, and that's something that not only brings in my background with nature and everything, but you have to have a trust factor with your couples that they know that you're going to be able to create not just beautiful photos but an experience with them.
Totally. I love how you just mentioned all of that and that, yeah, you need to build trust ahead of time and on the day. Like you need to have time to create this art and time for the couples to enjoy themselves on their elopement day and not feel rushed because most people are doing this because they don't want a traditional wedding and they don't want to be rushed and stressed and running from one place to the next. So communicating that with your couples is really key. And so I'm wondering, like, if you had to compare life now as, you've reached your goal of bookings for the year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you've reached
I
you've
did.
reached your goal, which round of applause
Yeah,
for Erica
thank
because
you.
she was on the struggle bus at one point, but so she
Last year
reached
I had 2 weddings booked. That was it. 2.
yeah.
Nothing else. And this year I have 18.
Yeah, now you're booked out with elopements, like with couples that feel like friends, which is amazing. And that's all because you chased your dreams, followed your heart, and all that stuff. So, what was life like before you chased all your dreams? What were you feeling? What was it that made you be like, I can't do this anymore? I got to pursue something else?
It was just like this, I don't know, this like deep down feeling of like being unfulfilled
Mm-hmm.
and just knowing like definitely some dread, not feeling like I really connected with my clients. And I mean, I say this like lovingly because I've been very fortunate to have amazing clients, but it just, as I photograph, I've probably photographed close to 100 weddings now.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the creativity aspect was
Mm-hmm.
really lacking for me because, you are kind of tied to a timeline and you're not always given great light. And now I can at least educate my clients about light and
Mm-hmm.
help them build a timeline that's going to really create the photos that they're hiring me for. So yeah, there was definitely just kind of like doom. And, I even like this weekend, it's been ungodly hot in the Pacific Northwest
Mm-hmm.
this week. And seriously, like you open the door and it's like an oven. And I was just so grateful that I didn't have a traditional wedding
Oh
to
my gosh,
photograph
yeah.
on Saturday, like almost all of my friends did. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had friends, pass out and go down, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, oh, I'm sitting in my air conditioning, enjoying things.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've had heat
Yeah.
exhaustion before after
Yeah.
a wedding. It's
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like there's a lot of things that can happen on elopement day too, but being tied to such a strict timeline, it would always bring back that feeling that I had with working for the government or working
Mm-hmm.
for the state or anything where it's like there's nothing I can do. It's outside of my control.
Yeah.
And I guess I have a little bit like I like to be in control,
Mm-hmm.
but in a chill way. Like I
Yeah.
don't freak out and lose my cool or anything, but I just like to be in control because I know what's best
Mm-hmm.
for my couples as far as
Yeah.
what they're looking for. And so kind of getting rid of that doom feeling has
Yeah.
been pretty incredible.
That's an amazing way to put it. And yeah, I definitely have felt that doom feeling before some wedding days. And just like you, I love all of my couples. But yeah, you just never know what you're going to be handed that day. And
Yeah.
so it's anxiety producing before a wedding day. Whereas before an elopement day, there's still some anxiety there. But yeah, I planned the whole thing. So I feel
Yeah.
very confident that I'm going to be giving a great experience. And if something happens, I'm prepared and we can pivot and all that stuff. We can sit in an air conditioned car for a little bit if we
E-
need to, so no one
exactly.
passes out,
Yeah.
like just little
Right.
things like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that doom feeling as a veterinarian, just like over and over again. And you don't want to have that feeling for your whole life. So what would you
Right.
tell people that are feeling that and they are making excuses for why they can't pursue their dreams, whether it be their age, like I'm too old. I thought that at 30 years old when I became a full-time photographer that I was too
Yeah.
old,
Totally.
So there's people out
Yeah.
there who use their age as a reason why they can't, or their kids or their
Hmm.
location. Like, what would you tell them that they want to pursue elopement photography, but they're stopping themselves for some reason?
I think what I would tell them is to just really sit down and kind of feel those feelings, examine them, and then set them aside and work towards that dream. Because if you really want something, it's going to happen. And you just
Mm-hmm.
have to find a way. Fear is a very valid emotion, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it doesn't serve you. And if you're always living in fear and like worrying about, well, I don't have the finances or whatever, your
Mm-hmm.
reason is, are you really helping yourself? And are you really, I guess, being, I don't know, I
Like
guess, are
true to
you,
yourself?
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Actually, that really, like, I went through an exercise, the find your why thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like my like mission statement was about being true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard to come up with that, which it really isn't, but
Mm-hmm.
that was what it comes down to is that if you're not true to yourself and what you feel like, it's going to show. It's going to come out in whatever
Mm-hmm.
way, whether it like your own emotions, like being angry or
Mm-hmm.
resentful or performance. I mean, I got in my way so much. I'm sure you remember that at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
this process. And it
Yeah.
is. It's like, yeah, I remember you did that podcast episode about perfectionism
Hmm.
and the fear of success. And
Yeah.
that's like, that was me to a T. And I think
Hmm.
it's because I have left so many jobs. And so I'm like, oh God, like I really like this one, but I'm
Hmm.
afraid of liking it too much because what if I have to leave and then I'm going to be successful? And what if I can't deliver? And you
Yeah.
figure it out. There's ways to figure it out.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like the heart wants what it wants, but our brain talks us out of it all the time. And it's hard. It's hard to pursue a dream when your brain is doing its damnedest to like present all these worst case scenarios to you. But the truth is, like, if you really want something, you will make it happen. And it may not happen on the timeline that you want. You are an example, like last year was not a great year for you, but you stuck with it and you found
Yeah.
me to help you figure out why things weren't working and you didn't just give up on it. And you've quit
Right.
things in the past. So it's not like you are afraid to quit things, but you quit the things that
Right.
weren't working for you. And you knew in your heart that this was going to be good for you. And it has been. And this year has been a good year for you.
Yeah.
And Erica's the reason why I did that Fear of Success podcast, because we were trying to figure out why she was procrastinating on working on some stuff. And it was because if you book things, you have to deliver an experience, you have to deliver photos, you have to plan. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I always know I can deliver. My biggest fear with that has always been like, am I going to hate it afterwards?
Yeah.
And I've learned that I have to let that go too, because as an artist, at the end of every elopement day, I'm like, go through my head of like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that.
Hmm.
But like that doesn't really matter because that's a way I feel like I grow as an artist too,
Hmm.
because I'm going to use that as fuel instead of getting down about it.
Yeah. That's also such a great point. Yeah. Because we all end an elopement day, wedding day, engagement session, adventure session, whatever it is, thinking about all the things that we didn't get or like all the things we wanted to do and we didn't or whatever it is. And our
Yeah.
clients don't know that stuff. They don't know the things that we maybe a cute moment that we missed focus on or whatever it is. But we know all those things. So we get down on ourselves. But instead of getting down on ourselves, using that to fuel your creativity for the next one is amazing. And that's also why people need to continuously raise their prices because they're just getting better and better and better after every shoot and like really refining their craft, which is super cool.
100%. Yeah.
Do you have any other advice for the folks out there who are thinking about quitting something, thinking about pursuing elopement photography? Like, what kind of advice do you want to leave them with?
I think,
Just do it.
yeah. 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 I mean, really, it's definitely just do it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that like if you're finding that, like, I definitely have found myself in that realm of like, well, I think I want to still do some weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And that really came from a fear
Yeah.
based thing. So what I've learned is to go after what I really want, to really speak to that client,
Mm-hmm.
and other inquiries will still come in, like for the
Mm-hmm.
things that, and then you have the option whether you want to take them or not. So follow that dream. Like if you really want to pursue elopements, but you're thinking nobody's going to book you for more than an hour or two, just try it, put it out
Mm-hmm.
there and work on styled shoots or whatever you need to get into that realm and
Mm-hmm.
go for it. And if that's something that you have the drive for, you'll figure it out. You'll go for it.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And yeah, offer 8-hour elopements on your website or something.
Yes, exactly. Get rid of, I remember when I still was like, but I still want to do my local bend package for 2 hours. And you're like, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Why? I don't know if I can. And then like,
Mm-hmm.
I was super, super excited to book a bend intimate wedding elopement for this late fall. And
Mm-hmm.
they want the 8-hour package. And I still had the hang up because all I had really photographed in Bend, other than one, I did do one like 10-hour day 2 years ago. But other than
Mm-hmm.
that, like I was traveling everywhere.
Yeah.
And I have a beautiful place in my backyard. And so that's my next goal is
Yeah.
to stay more local.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you don't have to travel as far. You can profit more. And there are people who want local experts, and the things that are the easiest for us. Sometimes we're like, oh man, well, it's easy for me to shoot and bend, so I can't charge that much. People aren't going to pay me for all this. And like, really, it's just our own little hangups about something being easy, when the things that are easy for us, it's easy because of our years of experience or our natural abilities. And those are the things that we should charge the most for, the things that come naturally to us. So
Totally.
yeah. So I think we covered a ton of mindset shifts, which are so great. I love your story and the fact that you have improved your business so much, and you're, paying for vacations, and you can go home to Colorado and take your dogs to the vet and all those things. So yeah, I'm super proud of you, and everybody should check out Erica's stuff. Where can they find you on Instagram?
Erica Swantek Photography.
Perfect. Yay. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Erica. And
Thank you,
can't wait
Megan.
to continue working with you in the mastermind.
It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Stoked with Megan McPhail. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring content, check us out on Instagram at Stoked with Megan McPhail. And to learn more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you quit your 9-to-5, visit my website at meganmcphail.com. I hope this leaves you feeling stoked. See you next week.